You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Jeff Winter, and I'm your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi, Jeff, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm super happy to have you on the show today, and it's going to be brilliant to talk with you. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, so welcome.
Well, thanks for having me here today.
So, Jeff, you're Mr. Industry 4.0, right? I think you even got an award for that, or you are number one thinker in Industry 4.0 out of 50 or something like that, and you've had tons of those awards. So I don't think I could ask anyone, find a better person to ask this question. How is AI transforming manufacturing, and how is generative AI attached to that? And basically, how do you put ChatGPT on a conveyor belt?
Oh, I love that question. But let's start with how AI is transforming manufacturing overall, because it's not just a tweak here and there. It's a complete reimagining of what's possible, or at least it should be. So AI is so transformative because of how universal and far-reaching it is. It's one of few technologies that impacts every industry, every department, and arguably every role, from the shop floor technician all the way up to the CEO. And whether you're just fine-tuning production schedules or analyzing financial forecast or inspecting product quality, AI is kind of making its way into how all work gets done. So, I even like to think of it kind of like a Swiss Army knife for modern business. It's powerful, it's adaptable, and it's capable of solving problems that previously seemed impossible before. But what makes AI's role in manufacturing particularly exciting is the sheer number of ways that it can create value. At its core, it operates in three primary ways, or the ways that I like people to think about it. One, it assists or augments decision-making. And this can be done by spotting trends, predicting outcomes, or just giving leaders the data-driven insights that they need to make smarter choices. The second way is it helps complete tasks. And this is anywhere from where you can use AI to do something for you. And a lot of generative AI stuff falls here, whether it's generating reports, generating code, generating text, generating images. And the last is it automates tasks entirely. And this is where you hand over the wheel to the AI, and AI decides and the AI implements. And this can free up humans to focus on higher value work. And this is mostly seen in high-speed decision-making areas like quality control or production control. But then there's also the adoption side of AI, which is just as versatile. So companies can purchase or use foundational AI capabilities, things that help build and train their own AI models customized for their needs. But they could also simply leverage AI as part of existing software. And honestly, within the next few years, I bet every single piece of software out there that you'll see will have AI integrated into in some way or another. And so this could be anything from helping an operator troubleshoot machine errors to assisting a supply chain manager with inventory predictions, or helping the CEO run complex scenarios with just the click of the button. So this becomes this part of a universal toolbox that you can use. Now, where generative AI comes in, it's kind of the next level. Traditional AI analyzes what is, and generative AI imagines what could be. And it can help with designing new products. It can help optimize factory layouts differently than traditional machine learning, or can simulate thousands of production scenarios before anything ever hits the real shop floor. It's kind of like having an engineer and a strategist and an inventor all working together to help make things possible that weren't really possible before. But to answer your fun question of how do you put ChatGPT on a conveyor belt? Well, obviously, you're not going to bolt on a chat bot, onto the side of a conveyor belt, though I'd pay good money to see that attempt.
Yeah.
But I think I get what you're asking, though. How can a tool like ChatGPT make a simple, physical, even dumb process smarter? So here's where it can get interesting. If we think about ChatGPT as a chatbot with incredible natural language processing, or NLP, and access to a huge amount of information, the out-of-the-box version, OpenAI's ChatGPT, probably wouldn't add much value in manufacturing for that particular conveyor. I mean, its corpus of data is general world knowledge and not specific to your factory, your machines, your workflows. So it can help explain what a conveyor belt is or give you a history of industrial automation, but it wouldn't tell you why line 3 just shut down. But if you build a ChatGPT-like model specifically for your company, trained on your systems, your processes, and your real-time data, well, that's where the magic can happen. Now imagine a technician asking, hey, what's wrong with conveyor belt 2? And the AI responds, there's an irregular speed drop. Check the belt tension or motor alignment, and here's the last maintenance log. Or a manager asks, how can I improve throughput? And the AI generates tailored recommendations based off historical production data and the real-time equipment performance. Or even moving up, you can have or potentially a plant operator wants to know what happens if I increase my belt speed by 10%. And the AI simulates the outcome and provides a detailed data-driven answer instantly. So in this case, the ChatGPT-like model isn't just answering questions, it's acting like a knowledge assistant and a process optimizer and helping with real-time decision-making. So it helps bridge the gap between your raw data and what you need to do, which is the actionable insights. So no, you're not literally putting ChatGPT on a conveyor belt, but you're embedding its intelligence into the process and making it integrated within your systems and trained on your data and tailored to your workflows. And when you do that, now a simple conveyor belt becomes a smarter part of your AI-powered factory.
But also sort of like, an AI, the funny thing, you talk about a human in the loop, right? So it becomes something that looks like AI in the loop for the human in the loop for an automated factory, right? To some extent. So you have an AI helping the human who's in the loop for the automated factory conveyor belt, right? Is that what you're saying?
It can be. There's a lot of different ways that you can and should use AI. Everywhere from the AI helping to validate something that a human comes up with, to the AI coming up with the analysis, but the human implements, or the AI comes up with the answer and the AI implements. There's a lot of different ways. And yes, in most of those, there is a human in the loop, but not all of them. There's actually an MIT study that was run a couple years ago that talked about all these different 5 modes of AI integration. And it actually said the most successful companies leveraged all 5. They didn't just work to AI decides and AI implements. They found the best cases where you use the AI integration at the level that matters.
So this is not just about using different tools for different things, but actually using all the different modes of automation for every. So this is not replacing humans necessarily, Jeff. That's what you're saying. It is about finding a way where we can produce more with the humans we have and the tools we have available.
Yes, well, it's doing both. It's replacing tasks and it's automating, or it's augmenting tasks. So it's shifting the work of humans, but some of the work is being replaced and some of it's creating new work.
So haven't we always done that? So I've referenced this exhibition a couple of times where I went in this podcast, where I went to a museum in Denmark, Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, where they had an exhibition about called Irreplaceable Human, about AI, because AI, they found, the AI hype also came to the museum, basically. So they wanted to make an exhibition about that. And what they said was that technology is turning humans into robots, so we can replace them with technology. That's the point. That's how we're progressing. So we start working only this, that, and that, so we can replace it. And I think my criticism was just, this has been something we've been doing since the Industrial Revolution. That's there's nothing new there. So my question is there anything new here, Jeff, or is this just another loom we're replacing with a machine, or what is the novelty?
AI is a new technology, and like any big disruptive technology, it changes the way humans work. It changes the way humans live. And we're going to adapt on both sides, the way that we work, the way that we live our lives based off these technologies. Other big ones are a good example of the internet or electricity are just as ubiquitous, just as pervasive in everything that we do. And there were fears when they came out of, yes, it changing the way that we worked in a negative way and changing the way that we lived in a negative way. But now we look back and go, how could we live without it? I would almost say the calculator analogy is more appropriate, where when the calculator first came out, the handheld calculator, there was a lot of resistance of people saying, this is going to make students dumber in math. They're going to not be capable of doing as much because they're going to have this calculator that can do it for them. I think we would all look back now and go, we are more capable with our, mathematics with calculators than without them. So it's a matter of learning how to use it to do more. And that's a different shift in mindset than just viewing as, yes, it is replacing my tasks that I was doing today. That's going to occur all the time with new technology. AI is the big one now. There'll be big new ones tomorrow. It's just about understanding how can we leverage this to help us be better.
So when you said that we weren't not gonna put ChatGPT on a conveyor belt, like literally, but maybe we will, right? And we just don't know. We can't imagine how it could do it. Does it make sense? My question. I'm just grasping.
Yeah, I mean,
we're
not gonna put it on a conveyor belt in the physical sense, but what we would do is, I see every person being equipped with some sort of device, a phone now, but it may be other devices in the near future that has something like ChatGPT built in, so the employee can just talk or interface with that and get the information that's connected to the conveyor belt. But you're not going to have a ChatGPT for a conveyor belt. You would have like a plant floor GPT that you made that is specifically designed for an operator that they can just use everywhere on all equipment.
And then have compute in every device basically that you have, right? IoT everywhere, and then connect it all together with a GPT maybe, so you can ask questions about how is my production going, is there anything I should be aware of, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's that's a great answer. I also made me think about the because I just read about that the whole Tesla is sort of disrupting all of the existing car manufacturers, and is this coming for every industry the way Tesla is built around computers and AI, and do we need, you saw the toothbrush AI, right? Maybe you've probably seen that meme on the internet, right? There's this toothbrush with AI in it. You haven't seen that one? No, but I've seen tons of them, that the electric toothbrush with AI, right? It's like, okay, seriously, guys. But is this something that's coming for every industry right now? Is this something that, if you make washing machines, you should also be aware that someone will build a completely digital digital twin enabled IoT washing machine that will completely change the way it works, just like Tesla is doing with an automotive today?
Well, Tesla is more unique there because even part of the way that they set up their company was to be seen as a software company, not a car manufacturer. That changes the way that you think about providing value to customers and where you focus your efforts. It resulted in disrupting the automotive industry, but it was much more than just the technology. It was their whole business model, their way of working, their way that they do everything. Now, to answer your question about AI integration into products, yes, we're going to see more and more of that just happening. That's kind of natural that we're seeing anyways, especially as the cost of AI model deployment on what could be edge devices or simply trained models integrated into products. We can do this pretty easily, and with over-the-air updates, you can refine those models over time, and so it will just become less and less expensive to have simple models built into products that do single functions, and we're just going to see that more and more.
Yeah, but that was maybe also my question, right? You said, Tesla was built as a software company. Does every manufacturing company has to think of itself as a software company in 10 years or in 2 years or now?
Not necessarily as a software company, but if you actually look at the shift in the industry, more and more manufacturers are creating more and new revenue streams from kind of three primary areas. One is software, one is digital services, and one is what I'm going to call data monetization. So the ability to leverage the data that they have in some way financially for their company. So software is one of those. But yes, companies need to figure out a way of embracing more broadly digital into their business model, which may or may not be related to software. As an example, I know that a year ago, not this past Hannover Messe, but the year before, it was a big shift in seeing how many hardware companies showed up with a software presence. That didn't mean that they actually had software. They may have partnered with the company that had software, but their presence, the way that they presented themselves to customers and to the world was very digital first, even if it was a very basic standard, piece of hardware or product that was sold. It changed the way that they're presenting themselves to the world.
But that's also, I think when I speak to people also on the podcast, it's like, there's all this messaging we've had. We've had people talked about, and I'm going to get back to them in the innovation theater, right? It's just something we do out here. We say we're data driven. We say we're digital first. There's been tons of those messages, and then people have been like, and now I see companies doing like, we've made this X company GPT because now we're AI enabled, and everyone knows that their processes, their data, and all that crap doesn't work smarter at all. They're not data driven. They're not digital first. They're very manual first. A lot of them, right? You see this as well, don't you? And do we trust this messaging? Or 70% of companies failed in digital transformation, right? In the last 10 years. That's I think it's a Gartner study, right? So can we? My question is, can they even harness this? Can they become these digital first companies, software companies? Are we asking too much, or is this not a thing they've had to do for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Are they going to do it now?
So there's a couple things to respond to that. First, I happen to notice this was actually a McKinsey study that was first done in 2017. And then I have 3 more studies that have been done since then that have within 10% the same answer. So anywhere between the 60s to the 80s% of stating that digital transformation did not meet objectives. Now, what's interesting, though, is I have another study by KPMG that shows that 99% of digital transformation initiatives result in a 1% or greater ROI. So it's interesting to show that it's working financially, but not achieving goals. So it depends on how you view it. If you don't transform, but you still made money, is that a success or failure? So it depends on how you're looking at that. Now, the second point that you addressed, though, is related, do they need to do it? You're going to be driven by market pressures of customers and your competitors, and that will drive it more than anything. Look at, the famous example of Netflix and how they adapted from sending you physical DVDs and Blu-rays to completely changing their digital platform. That completely changed the industry, and it forced everyone to either adapt or die. And so that's going to be happening more often and faster than in the past, because once you do go digital, the ability to change what you do is a lot easier than if you're purely kind of physical.
But that's also why, it's not, maybe that's also why they don't make money, isn't it? Because, if they only adapt when everyone else has done it already, then it becomes something where they avoid losing money, right? So the ROI might be lost somewhere in they're adapting when it's a commodity already. Does that make sense? When there's no differentiation, right? If everyone has it, there's no... Of course, you don't make money on it. Then you're just competing. You're just surviving.
Well, yes. Are you
becomes
doing digital
thing.
to innovate, or are you doing digital to catch up?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Netflix did it to innovate. They changed the market. That's the good story, almost a survivor bias story, right? But everyone else just played catch up to it. And are they making money? I'm not sure. No, anyway, but I think that I loved your question. Thank you for that. I have another question for you as well, right? So the future of work is so focused on office workers, but how is the future of work going to look in manufacturing industries? How are we changing the way we're working there? And does the concept of a pseudo work even exist there? What are we eliminating when we're optimizing for in manufacturing industries?
So in manufacturing, the future of work isn't really about just sitting in a different chair or moving your desk to your living room if you're working remotely.
I'm digital now. No, exactly.
It's about empowering workers to do more with better tools. And technologies like AI or IoT or augmented reality and even robotics are transforming how shop floor workers, field technicians, and operators interact with machines, processes, and even each other. So imagine, kind of workers on the line aren't just monitoring equipment. They're wearing augmented reality glasses that overlay instructions or real-time machine statistics or even predictive maintenance alerts. or technicians aren't spending hours diagnosing a problem. They ask an AI assistant, why did this machine shut down? Or field workers aren't, drowning in paper manuals. They're getting, using smart devices that guide them step by step through complex tasks with, once again, AI powered kind of insights. So this is kind of a world where connected workers are enabled, informed, and supported at everything that they do. So the future of work in manufacturing is smarter work, not harder work. Now, in terms of your pseudo work, I'm going to admit I've never heard this term before, but I assume it means acting or appearing busy while doing tasks that don't contribute to the goals or that help others.
Some
And
people
if
call it
so, does that
PowerPoint production,
exist?
right? Just simple PowerPoint production and data no one's ever going to use, stuff like that, right? So do work.
Yeah. So I think it exists everywhere, but you can see it more as you move up the corporate ladder where job behaviors and activities can be more abstract or loosely tied or even disconnected from some of the goals, whether it's compared to, let's say, an operator technician that has to do 150 tasks a day and those tasks are tracked. It's a lot different if you're higher up in an organization. So I think it's harder for that pseudo work to exist on a shop floor.
Yeah, but that's
But
also why I thought it was interesting to ask, right? Because we're working with something concrete here on the conveyor belt on the factory floor, right? That's why I love to ask that question.
But as for are we eliminating, or what we're eliminating when we're kind of optimizing, that becomes easy. We eliminate the hidden inefficiencies and potentially even accuracy or performance issues. We eliminate those, and any of the wasted steps or repetitive tasks and manual work that steal time without adding value. So it's not about replacing people. It's about letting people focus on what they do best and solving problems, improving decisions, and innovating.
A follow-up question to that could be and would obviously be, right, as the requirements for factory floor workers changing, then is it going to be, less or more complex for them to do their job, with all the devices they have to work with, or are just going to be differently skilled? Are they going to be, we said about companies going to be software companies in the future, just before, and our, floor workers going to be IT professionals in the future or tech professionals? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, we're going to see not only the tasks change, but we're going to see the roles change themselves, and we're going to see the skills needed to perform these roles change. So not only will people need to be learning new sets of knowledge, they will need to be performing new things that they haven't performed before.
So they get more instructions from the AI, but they also need to know how to instruct the. There's this double thing of it. They get more help, but they also need to know more complex things, right? That's always the thing, right? The more we move up the ladder or get higher responsibility for more things because we automate it, then suddenly what we have responsibility for also becomes more complex than just me moving a box from here to there, which we might have done 80 years ago or something like that, right?
Potentially, but the frontline operator won't need to know how the AI systems work. But as an example, more specifically, when they're onboarded, right now, there's typically a big onboarding time for new employees that go through everything that you need to know. I could see that completely being replaced to no onboarding time in the future, where the technology is set up to assist them on the job with the information that they need as they need it for their particular task right there at their fingertips. So they're not learning in advance what to do. They're learning while they need to do it. And that's a complete shift in the way that they work, but not necessarily the task in this case for what they're performing.
So is this okay? I'm just thinking, is this an outsourcing of the SME to some extent? Now you don't need to have that. Now you're outsourcing that to AI. Is that what we're talking about?
No, not in that case. It's changing the way that information and knowledge within people, within systems, processes, and the company is captured and then communicated back to the employee at the right time for what they need. In this case, that's what I was, kind of referring to. So you can use AI to tap into, I'm going to call it traditional knowledge, like textbook knowledge on supply chain optimization, but then you could also tap into the knowledge of 20 of your best employees to say what they do and how they do it and capture all that knowledge while simultaneously aligning it with the real-time information, what's happening, so that a new employee can be given so much more information on what to do as if they had all those people right there in front of them that they could ask these questions to. I need to look up this concept in a book, or I can just go ask, Jake, the maintenance technician who's been here for 35 years and knows how that machine works. And by the way, I get all the real-time values simultaneously. So imagine having that at their fingertips when they need it. So they won't get trained in advance. They'll just have the people there like virtually, I'm going to call it, or the information there to help them as they need it, when they need it.
But that's actually a quite profound change, if I understand it correctly, because this means also that what I know leaders have been wanting for a long time is to have greater redundancies on employees. If an employee leaves or happens something to them, right, we always have a fallback plan. So that's what AI is gonna help with. But that also means maybe we don't need to have all these top skilled employees. Or people tend to, if that's possible, we will do that, right? It tends to be something like that, right? But is that what we're talking about? The redundancy for employees is getting easier to handle, or?
In some cases, maybe, but in other cases, you still need qualified, capable people. It's just the way that the training occurs will be different. You still, as you get to more complex things, you still need to understand the complex nature of that thing, but the specifics that this company has chosen to do can wait until they need to learn that. It doesn't have to be taught in advance. It can be learned in the moment.
Oh yeah, in the moment. Okay, so that means greater focus on what we need to actually understand. That makes sense. And it's just thinking about how that will affect, the holistic understanding of what goes on in a company, which is also, we've been talking in corporate about storytelling and vision and sharing the holistic understanding of the company. That's been an important thing of the employee experience, right? And we still, this is just a different thing, right? I'm just trying to figure out, what does this mean? How is it changing the way we're going to operate in companies, right?
Yeah.
So onboarding is a big thing of that, right? To some extent. Yeah. But also, the innovator's dilemma, Jeff. Is it even responsible? No, not responsible. Reasonable. I want to say, to ask companies with established products to rethink everything. Do they need to set aside more for innovation now than they ever did before? We already spoke a little about this. That you need to do these things, but it's not just going to be an innovation theater. We get a machine that goes beep somewhere in the corner. It just works. It just does something, but it's not really changing everything. So how do we go from just pleasing investors by saying we've did something to actually do something that makes a big change? Does it have to hurt to be good to you?
Short answer, yes, and it's necessary. The world is moving too fast and customer expectations are evolving at warp speed. So established products may be cash cows now, but they won't stay that way forever. History is littered with giants who clung too tightly to what worked yesterday, only to lose everything to what works today. The question isn't if companies should rethink everything, it's how to do it without jeopardizing the present. And innovators that embrace this balancing act, optimizing the core while exploring the new, are the ones who are going to win.
Yeah, and that's also that's also back to you need to build a way to make this. That's what we said about the software company, right? Making sure we get digital into the way we're operating as well and everything. So you can't just be a purely physical. I just think that I've talked to companies that are still working with ERP systems, manufacturing companies with ERP systems from the 90s, right, and core systems, and you've seen those mainframes as well, right? They're still out there, right? They're still there, aren't they? How come?
How come?
How can they still be there today in 2024? What?
I mean, this depends on what the company is trying to do. I mean, if you look at it, you can have a company, I would argue, digitally transform, but still have technology that's 25 years old. Because the transformation is about changing what you do. It doesn't necessarily mean modernizing every system to the latest version, the greatest capability. If you, as an example, have a production line that has 25-year-old, I'm going to call it electronics on it, and you want to integrate it into a system for data capture and then automatic control back, you can probably add a small edge device to that leverages everything you have existing, but still allows you to tie into a bigger infrastructure that has a bigger purpose and a bigger initiative. So yes, it's very common to see old technology integrated into these systems. In fact, if you look at the World Economic Forum Lighthouse program, they have about 172 lighthouses as of October of this year. Most of them are brownfields. They're not greenfields. So these are some of the best factories out there, and they weren't built from scratch. They were modified from what they already had.
And that's interesting, right? Because there's always this, there's this image also on LinkedIn where you have this lava, right, where you just add a rocket to it or something like that, right? And then you have the transformation is a butterfly. Real transformation is becoming something different, right? And not just a lava that sort of can fly a little bit, right? People think transformation is, uh, but here you're saying that edge technology and attaching something onto it can actually sometimes be what you need to do to get digital. I think that's an important message. It's a different message than what I usually hear. Or am I misunderstanding you?
No, it depends on the objective that you have. And part of your objective, you need to evaluate, can you do that? So some of this could be on, hey, we want to have an objective to change the way that we provide value through data monetization, or it could be through personalized or customized customer experience. In order to do that, we need to then have this particular data from our manufacturing processes, our supply chain processes, our field service processes, our customer service processes. And if you end up finding, wow, we don't have that data from the manufacturing processes because they're 30 years old, then the question is, well, what needs to be done in order to get that? And you can decide to replace the line if you want, but you can probably find that there are add-on devices that allow you to get what you want. But if you're going to be changing your production process, then yes, you may have to completely change your production line. It depends on what your objective is.
I love that, because that means that you sort of look at and identify what you're doing, your challenges today, and then attach to the solutions to the challenges that you're identifying, your needs, right? But the messaging is often that you need to just make sure you get AI in everything, change everything around. And if you don't do it today, then in 5 years maybe you'll be behind because you didn't turn it all over. But you're saying look at the challenge then, and find solutions to these concrete edge solutions challenges that you have, right? That's what you're saying, isn't it?
It could be one of the answers, absolutely.
Because when I talk, in office worker scenarios, it's all about, let's optimize our systems, let's modernize the system so that anything, if it's in ERP, you get the newest technology, the new solutions from having modernized all of that. That's not the same in manufacturing.
Well, they're different initiatives. I break up an Industry 4.0 as three types of initiatives that you have. You have modernization, which is about updating or replacing legacy systems to current standards, best practices, and newest technology. Then there's optimization, which is getting the most out of what you have, which may or may not be a modernized system. And then there's transformation, which is about doing things differently. And Industry 4.0 has all of these. And it's not necessarily just a linear path. You modernize, then you optimize, then you transform. You may do all of them simultaneously. There's different paths that you can take there. So yes, if you look at some of the studies on some of the most successful, Industry 4.0 transformations, they did have to do all of them. But it's not that they modernized every system everywhere all at once. They would have done it in phases because of specific needs. And most of them show that they modernized their ERP as the first step. They make sure that is capable of doing all the stuff that they want before they start to do the next parts. Because if you can't link any other systems back to your financials, it becomes a lot harder to actually do transformative aspects that, especially at a company level or a customer level. You can do transformative aspects like within one little department, but you can't do it at a corporate level, at a company level. So that's what we're seeing. There was a report by IoT Analytics that talked about how ERP modernization was one of the first projects or initiatives that people did as part of their digital transformation journey for manufacturing. But ERP, modernization by itself won't get you anything. It enables the capability to do other things.
I think that's right. I think actually, Jeff, this is a really brilliant section here in this episode. Then, modernization and optimization and transformation, not just bundle it all together. I think that's splendid. But it also shines a light back on, do companies need to set aside even more for innovation now than before? Well, if it makes sense, right, in the right modes, and if they can see they get the value from modernizing, if they see they have to transform, right, because of the market, or if they can just identify optimizations that make sense. So you need to do all that in different speeds, right? That's what you're saying. I just think it's profound in this hype market, which AI is right now, that you're saying these three things and you're sort of splitting it up.
True, but I would say companies do need to invest more in innovation now. It's becoming more and more important because the speed at which you need to respond or adapt to market conditions or technological changes is not only very fast today, it's increasing in its speed tomorrow. And if you don't have a mechanism, a process, and a team and a budget set aside to quickly evaluate these new technologies, experiment, and attempt to integrate them, you'll fall behind. 20 years ago, you could have a multiple year runway to have to adapt to a technology. Now you might have a month to adapt to a new technology. And so you need processes in place to be able to do that. So that's where you need to invest in formalizing innovation in your company so that you don't fall behind.
And that, I mean, I have to ask you on in your work and your job, Jeff, and your as an advisor and everything. Those two things, right? That you're saying, do modernization, optimization, transformation in the right places, and you need to do more. That must be one of the difficult things, right now, isn't it? That's where you have to give tentative answers, right? It's not always clear, is it? What people should do here.
Well, every goal for a digital transformation or Industry 4.0 journey is different. And this is one thing that why this subject becomes so vague is because very few companies have the same objective. And even more so is every company would then have a different way of getting there, even if in theory they did have the exact same objective. How they get there will be massively different. The speed at which they do it, the order in which they do it, the level at which they do it, and it all is based off their current business objectives, their digital maturity, their culture, their organization, their structure. There's so many things that are dependent for each individual company.
And you've managed anyway to grow, and a large presence on social media, or LinkedIn at least, where you advise people. Because the problem is always you make these. I talk to people about this as well. You make these general statements on LinkedIn, right? Sometimes people do that. I do that, but that's not the depth of it necessarily, right? Because you can't. people everyone has their different story, as you say. You need to figure out what are they doing and then move them from where they are to some place else, and that can't be captured in I don't know, 500 word post, right?
True. And that's why I try and have like one specific point on each post that I make. And I do focus a lot on big general frameworks or considerations that would be applicable to everyone for the specific point I'm making. I talk a lot about the different assessment and benchmarking tools that are out there to help companies evaluate where they're at. I talk about considerations for how you select your objectives, considerations for how and where you prioritize your efforts, just all the considerations across the board. And yes, it ends up coming to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts rather than one giant big kind of guide.
Yeah, because I had someone in a workshop saying to me, also when I presented also some use cases, she was like, "Oh, I expected more concrete use cases," and then I said to her, "You expected me to come in and change exactly what you're doing today in your daily work, and this is a workshop, with other companies. I can't do that. That's not the point, right?" But people were like, "Oh, can you just change what I am doing right now, all of it?" And no, we have to understand what you're doing and how we can apply these things, right? So this translation thing is just. It's just always, I always feel personally sometimes I feel shallow in writing on LinkedIn because you know that the reality out there is different from the messaging you can at any time ever produce in that format, right? Anyway,
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, but of course, that's just it's just a premise, right? But Jeff, abundance and scarcity, that's something I hear more and more people talking about. That we're going from a world of scarcity to maybe a world of abundance, right? And this becomes a downstream discussion from a lot of hype tech inflection points. But how do we get to a world of abundance? Do you think?
Well, I'm not sure true abundance is even possible, at least not in its literal sense. I mean, abundance implies having more than you need, supply always outpacing demand with no limits in sight. But that's a tricky target because human wants, needs, and expectations tend to scale alongside of supply. What was once abundant quickly becomes the standard or even scarce again. But if you shift your perspective, if you think of abundance in this case as generating enough for everyone, then the conversation changes. It's not about excess, it's about access. So can we create systems that ensure enough food, energy, products, and opportunity for everyone to thrive? And this version of abundance is about balance, matching resources to needs in smarter, more efficient, and more sustainable ways. And technology is the key to unlocking that balance, and artificial intelligence, automation, even renewable energy allow us to rethink how we produce, how we distribute, how we optimize what we already have. And then the tools exist to eliminate waste, to improve efficiency, and to make sure that no one is left out, whether it's smarter supply chains, reducing food waste, or energy grids powered by renewables, or digital solutions connecting people to education, healthcare, jobs, you name it. So true abundance isn't about more for some, it's about enough for all. And I view that's a future worth, building toward.
I think, I just have to say, I think that's an awesome answer, Jeff. Really, truly awesome. I think you sort of put some sense into, we can't even fix access for everyone right now. So let's not talk about excess. I think it's beautiful, to be honest, truly. But what are the obstacles to get to that world of more access then? And why are they there, do you think?
I'd say the biggest obstacles are inertia, short-term thinking, and misaligned incentives. I mean, companies are often optimized for profit now, not for the abundance later. Existing systems, whether they're supply chain, energy grid, or even policies, are all built around scarcity, limited resources, limited efficiency, and a protect what you have mindset. Shifting to abundance requires breaking these entrenched habits and investing in transformation that might take years to pay off. It also demands trust in technology, in new economic models, and in the willingness to share innovation instead of hoarding it. Overcoming these barriers isn't easy, but the cost of not trying is far higher.
And you say habits, right? A lot of people will say natural, the way we are, the natural state of humans, right? Hoarding, scarcity, right? I
Yep.
think Harari said, when you meet a berry bush, he wrote that in *Sapiens*, humans don't just eat and then eat all of it and then they die in the winter. They always think, oh, I will be in pain tomorrow. So desperation is always there, right? You're desperate to hold on to when you're having a good time, and you're desperate to get out of your desperation when you're actually in a bad situation, right? So desperation is just all there is. And is that what we're talking about? We need to change that mindset, the desperation mindset. Is that the point?
Maybe. I feel like that's going in a slightly different direction. I agree with it, but I don't know that in this case, desperation, it's a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a Buddhist way, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's why you need. There's always desperation to just sit down and meditate, right? That's the point. but I really, again, I love the access thing. And how do we? So and that's actually one constraint on the whole abundance thing, that we need to talk about giving people access to the things that we're already doing well and could do more of to some extent, right? But there's also another thing, inhibiting the abundance thing, and that's the whole green transition, right? How does it rhyme, this abundance theory, with a world speeding up its productivity capacity and the need to be considerate when we're consuming the Earth's resources?
So the green transition and I would say increasing productivity actually can and do in a lot of cases complement each other, especially more recently as we've gotten better at it and figured out. Because at first glance, it may seem like a paradox. How do we grow productivity while reducing our environmental impact? And A lot of the answer now is in smarter, more efficient systems. And all the technologies we talk about allow us to decouple growth from resource consumption. So, for example, advanced manufacturing can produce more with less energy and fewer raw materials. Renewable energy scales output while lowering emissions. Circular economies
Mm.
recycle waste back into resources, turning this take, make, dispose model into a regenerative one. But the green transition isn't about slowing down. It's about redefining what productivity means. A system optimized for abundance doesn't just measure output, it measures efficiency, sustainability, and long-term value. And in that sense, speeding up productivity capacity is the path to abundance as long as we're using technology to do it the right way.
Yeah, and also ensuring that the products that we're producing are, durable, right?
Yeah.
There's been a tendency the last, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years of just producing more quick, breaking stuff. Everyone sees that. If you go back, you talk to your grandmother, and she will say, "Oh, everything lasted for 3 generations." The things we had used to have, right? And now today is like, "Oh, it will if it lasted, half a year, you're happy, right? Your shoes are not worn out in half a year, then you're lucky, man, right? Isn't that true, right? And isn't that something we need to focus on as well? Not just necessarily producing more and greener, but also producing things that are more durable."
Maybe. It depends on what the good or item is. There are some that, yes, should be designed to be more durable, and there are some that should be designed to be more disposable or to be
Mm,
more reusable.
true.
Because there's a lot of things that come out that people expect to only last a short amount of time because they know that things change too quickly. And so if you build processes to kind of recapture all the physical stuff and reuse it, you can still achieve these goals while having something that is either more disposable or designed to have a short lifespan. So I don't know that's the same as, 30, 50 years ago. Products didn't change that often because technology didn't change that fast. But now if you look at it, the difference between an iPhone to the next iPhone can be drastic 1 year. And that's just a 1 year difference. And all the innovation and hardware and software that goes into that can be a lot. So we need to have a plan for knowing that, hey, we're going to have an iPhone 25. And so what's the path to get there and take advantage of all the way back to the iPhone 1 for what we do with it?
Yeah, you're raising a really good point, because that's actually maybe the most difficult thing, is actually taking all the digital products, physical digital products, and actually reusing them, because they become obsolete over time. Also, just batteries, right, is still an issue. Recycling batteries is still something people are working on doing better, right? So the whole digital first thing is I'm not say disconnected from it, but there are issues there, right?
Well, there are issues and there are benefits. So you just need to balance them.
Mm, mm. So, Jeff, an honest opinion: do companies need to embrace generative AI? And you already said some of this, right? Do they need to embrace generative AI right now? Should they focus more on other, more established techniques? Is it more important for people to uh, to reduce their product lineup or embrace generative AI in the technology stack right now? What are your thoughts on all that? Or should they just look at linear technology and start using RPA if they haven't used that already? Or now I come from a lot of an office thinking, so that's why I say RPA. Sorry.
I mean, it's a great question, and it's not a simple answer because it's also not Gen AI or bust. It's about solving the right problems with the right tools. I mean, generative AI is exciting, but it's not a silver bullet for everything, everywhere, for everyone.
Some people
And
say.
many companies, especially in manufacturing or more established, um, techniques like RPA or traditional AI or lean practices potentially might be better for your starting point. But if your processes are messy, your data is unreliable, or your operations aren't optimized, throwing Gen AI into the mix won't magically fix it. Sometimes the most powerful, impactful move isn't introducing cutting edge tech, it's simplifying what you already do. It's standardizing what you do. Something like reducing product complexity or streamlining workflows or eliminating redundancy. Now,
Mm.
that said, manufacturers shouldn't ignore generative AI entirely. It's already proving valuable in many different areas, from predictive maintenance to quality control to supply chain optimization, all over the place. The key is balance. Once again, focus on foundational improvements first and layer on generative AI where it can add real value. And if you're still grappling with manual data entry or basic automation gaps, then sure, RPA might be your hero right now. But if you're already have a strong foundation, generative AI can help you move faster, innovate smarter, and unlock opportunities you didn't know existed. The trick, once again, is to align the solution with the problem in this case. Now,
Yeah, the
that
right
is my
places.
answer, I'm going to say, for the organization. But because generative AI is so ubiquitous, it's different to use it at a personal level. I argue almost all employees should be using something like ChatGPT or any equivalent of a chatbot style interface to help with a job now. Now, that isn't a company integration, but let's say you had 10,000 employees and 5,000 of them might potentially benefit by having access to some chatbot readily available. It could be Microsoft Copilot built into the tools that they use, Word, PowerPoint, like all these office tools. That's an example of using generative AI, but not directly in your processes. So that's an easy, low risk, low cost ability to start integrating generative AI into the fingertips of a lot of your employees without necessarily changing the company.
Yeah, and I think that's also what everyone's looking at, right? People also, I know CFOs who I talk to a lot, are also looking at, does it even make sense to buy, a per user license fee if they just use the raw language model? There's easier ways to get access to a raw language model, cheaper ones if you just use a cloud model, right? So there's all this discussion, but how can we give people a large language model that can make them smarter and help them in their writing and all that? Also, a lot of people, that's dyslexic people or people who have different languages and all that, where I think a lot of people are sort of missing the trick of what this technology actually means for people like those to get into the conversation, to join the conversation. And that enablement is something I see a huge boom of productivity by enabling these people, right? That's just a different perspective that we often miss, right? But I also hear you say that, and I heard you say that initially, at least, that no, this is not going to be everything. So the personal, and now I'm just throwing a curveball at you here. But what do you think of, do you believe these AGI things and this will be for everything in a second, Jeff? Personally, what do you feel about AGI?
I mean, we're going to get there, and it's one that it's going to change everything about life, I would say. And I don't know that we know how it's going to change it yet.
Mm,
We know that this is happening, and it's about learning as we go, both from I'm going to call it a work side, a business side, a personal side, a humanitarian side, a social side, just all these views kind of coming together on what we want out of it and how we want it to shape what we do. Some of it will be guided, by the technology. Some will be guided by the people that use the technology.
So you're not going like you're not telling. At least that's what I hear from the conversation. You're not telling people like in 20 years. Don't go around having a 20-year fantasy about how things will look in 20 years and start doing that right now. Focus on what you can do, what you know, what's out there, the tools that work. You're also saying tools, how these generative AI tools can help you. But there's a lot of people saying like, okay, let's focus on how will this be in 20 years and get ready for the in 20 years transformation. I don't hear you saying that, right? Is that are you more focused here, Jeff, or what's your
I
advice here?
mean, it's not more focused. It's just, I would say, good use of my time. If you look at it and go, how disruptive was ChatGPT when it came out? It was wildly disruptive. And within a year, the amount of change that's occurred in generative AI has been impressive and
Mm,
sometimes mind-blowing. And that's within 1 year of one major release that got everyone excited about a concept that's been out for years before, but not many people really knew about it, and it wasn't as good. If you extrapolate that out just 2 more years, you can start to see what the technology can do, but you have a hard time grasping its impact when you're going to have a hard time differentiating between what a human creates and what AI creates, and that's within 2 years.
mm.
20 years, I mean, things are going to change so much that it would just be a fun thought experiment to think about what it might be like. I don't think that anyone's really going to be able to predict it because this is going to be so disruptive on so many facets of everything that we know about the world that it's going to be hard to prepare. You can just stay on top of it, it as it changes.
Yeah, but people like the autonomous enterprise something, or autonomous everything will be one-man companies. You have the human in the loop in what you've said today as well, right? You keep him there, right? They're important. You said that earlier. So it's just that I'm just asking about that kind of messaging out there. That's also stressful and seems detached. I feel personally sometimes from a reality. When you walk around, when you go out and you talk. My wife is a teacher. Do you know how many teachers use ChatGPT? Not a lot, right? We're very far away from an autonomous world.
I think more use it than you think.
But definitely. But also, I also think fewer use it than you think. I think there's a double thing to this actually. So I think it's anyway. But I think Jeff, this has been brilliant. I've been really happy to have you on the podcast. I've loved having you here today, and glad we finally got around to doing it after speaking for a long time about this. So I have one final question for you, and I think you know what question it is because I've I always ask this at the end of my shows. So are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
So Jeff, what is the only constant?
I think everyone's answer to this naturally gravitates towards the word change, because that's the expression we hear all the time. So I'm not going to give you that one. I want to give you a different one that I don't hear people saying as often. And I'm going to say, what is the only constant? It's the need for storytelling. Technology and numbers might drive business, but humans are driven by stories. And whether you're pitching an idea, launching a product, or rallying a team, storytelling is the bridge that connects this logic to emotion and inspires action. You could have the best data, the most innovative solution, or the most compelling analysis, but if you can't make people feel why it matters, you've already lost their attention. I mean, think about it. When was the last time a spreadsheet made you excited or a technical report moved you to action? Probably never, or very rarely. People don't buy into features as much as they buy into narratives. They want to know why something is important, what impact it will have, and how it connects to a bigger picture. Storytelling makes your data and ideas, and it takes them and it gives them context, purpose, and meaning. And it turns these numbers into outcomes and processes into progress and goals into a shared vision that people can rally around. So the constant truth here is whether you're in the boardroom or on the shop floor or pitching a disruptive new technology to skeptical stakeholders, your ability to tell a great story will always set you apart. It's not fluff, it's a business superpower. Because at the end of the day, even the most advanced AI or cutting-edge innovation won't make a difference if people don't understand why it matters or how it changes their world. So the need for storytelling, that's timeless.
That's a brilliant constant, Jeff. And once again, in this episode, you surprised me profoundly. I love this. And it's a new one, completely new one. So thank you very much for that. And thank you so much for having been a guest on The Only Constant. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
You've listened to The Only Constant, a podcast sponsored by Basico.